Welcome to the AFR Saints channel, where we provide you daily content on your favorite team, the New Orleans Saints. Do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. Be sure to leave your comments below and smash that like button. Who dat?
It's hard for me to comment too much. I do think there was a few plays in there that I thought was an improvement without looking at it. The offensive line, defensive line, those are tougher evaluations just coming right off the field. But I thought overall, I know this. I know that I thought he played better in last week's game. I thought he improved this week in practice, and I saw some good things tonight too. So, I think there's some improvement being made.
Dennis Allen on Trevor Penning. Right or wrong, when you're talking about a former first-round pick, there's just going to be more conversation about him. Jon Stinchcomb, former Saint great, Super Bowl champion, was on the call for the Saints this preseason. Good enough to join us. John, it's always a pleasure, man. Thank you for the time. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks.
Hey, we have referenced on the show routinely the last several months a conversation that you and I had the last time you were here after the draft. And you gave us some really insightful remarks about sort of paralleling the start of your career, where you were a high draft pick, took you a couple of years, and then you went kaboom and became a great starting player. And we kind of looked at that as could Trevor Penning follow that path? Okay, so we talked about that hypothetical. They've had camp, 3 preseason games. How much progress do you see there with the former first-round pick?
I see progress. I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to be candid, I don't know that it's progressed to the point of starter caliber. But that's kind of inconsequential at this point because the Saints are going to rely on him to be that starter. I don't think there's another option in-house, nor do they have a lot of cap space, nor are they just kind of growing on trees that you can just pluck another one out and replace him with someone who could step right in. So I think there's going to be some pains that are felt this season, but there is opportunity for him to continue to get better.
So I'm glad you mentioned there's nobody in-house. Strange thing now in the NFL, it didn't happen when you were there, is like you go from 90 to 53 in one day. Or really, I guess, in one cut.
Uh-huh.
What's the realistic possibility, John, that when 1,000 players become free agents tomorrow, something shakes and there's a better option than what you have right now?
I think that's slim to none.
Okay.
I don't think you're looking at teams that are going to keep their 3 best tackles, maybe 4. So their 5th best option is better than our 2nd. I don't think that's realistic.
So in your view, is Trevor Penning still the best option that the Saints currently have on the roster at right tackle?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How much of
I don't see
Sorry, go
anybody
ahead.
else here. No, that's it.
I was just going to say, how much is the gap then? Because if you're talking Oli Udo or someone like that, when you look at it through a very trained eye, what's the gap like?
I think you see a higher upside with Penning. I think his ability in the run game might get overlooked at times because of his shortcomings in pass protection. But, it was highlighted a couple times on Sunday, just yesterday, that he can create some college-sized holes that are uncommon. I mean, one of the reasons they drafted him is just because of his raw power. And at times, that is on full display. I think we haven't even seen the tip of the iceberg of what this offense will look like under Kubiak. And it's going to rely heavily on movement, outside zone, play-action pass. That is to his advantage. I think he was a misfit, if you will, in the Carmichael offense, which is a lot of straight drop back pass for the quarterback. Everyone knows where it's the point of attack is going to get set, and you just have to be able to pass protect. I think that changes considerably once we take the field against Carolina. I think it should really help not only Trevor, but that entire offensive line.
How do you feel about Taliese Fuaga at this point?
Yeah, well, you watch him play, and it's just a matter of reps for him. I mean, you see the talent, you see his football skill, his movement skills, the way he controls his body. When he makes a mistake, I think it's more of just experience and reps that he can get and be like, oh, I can put myself in a better position. I can use different techniques, but the athleticism is through the roof. The way he controls his body is exceptional, and you got a really good one in Fuaga.
That's great to hear. Jon Stinchcomb, former Saints great, Super Bowl champion, is with us, was on the call for the Saints in the preseason. Flip it over to the other side of the line of scrimmage. John, there's a lot of really interesting players there, right? I mean, Brian Brzee looked like he improved. Isaiah Foskey maybe not as much. You got a rookie draft pick on the defensive line, a teammate of Trevor Penning from college. It looks like he's probably has really a chance of making the team. What did you see from that defensive front in camp and in the preseason?
I see a lot more depth. I see a lot more variability. I think Chase Young is that X factor that takes this front to a whole nother level. I think it'll actually unlock Granderson and his ability. I think he gets overlooked at times just because we just weren't able to complement his skill set like we will this year. I think Cam is able to fill in a role that fits where he's at in his career much better. I think the progression of Brzee is real, and not only is he going to be a factor in rushing the passer, but I think he's much improved in the run game as well. So I think this group is one of the more improved groups just for maturation from Brzee and some of the younger players, and the addition of Chase makes a huge difference. So much improved group. I don't know about Foskey. I think he's the question mark for me. Do they give him another year to develop, or have they seen enough that, maybe it's just not panning out? So it'll be interesting to see what they do there.
Hey, do you think, John, or do you have a strong opinion one way or another about how they do the cuts now instead of in a series? It's just one day you go from 90 to 53?
Yeah, well, I think it dovetails better into only having 3 preseason games. I know by that last preseason game, if you don't have anybody playing, but yet you've already made those cuts, then you're asking guys that you wouldn't normally, quote unquote, risk to take snaps that are less meaningful for them. So you're a little bit more exposed. I think that's when guys are most concerned about getting injured in that kind of scenario. So I think a one fell swoop cut makes more sense, especially with a minimum 10 days of time to kind of figure out, do we like our 53? Do we going to try to pluck one or two players that we've identified that's now on the market?
If there was a guy coming into camp, John, that maybe you didn't know or know a lot about that caught your eye, that you're like, man, that guy can play and should be an NFL player, is there one guy that maybe stands out that comes to mind?
Oh, that's a good one. Let me think about that. So, I was expecting more from the wide receivers. I mean, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer here, but outside of Olave and Shaheed, there was a lot of opportunity for some of those guys to step up, both veterans and young players. And I think we saw flashes from Bub Means that, he's capable. He was getting open at times. There's a drop that he had yesterday, and it's just kind of limited opportunities for us to kind of evaluate him. So he would be someone that I think the Saints would want to kind of explore more, because there's opportunity in that depth chart for him to be more meaningful than some of the other players that were young. Kool-Aid McKinstry is a guy. I mean,
sure.
That first game and before his injury, I mean, he was kind of popping. You saw that there was play that appeared game ready. So in an area of strength, I think that's arguably the deepest pool of position group that the Saints have. He was a nice addition.
Got two more for you. Maybe this one's burying the lead because it's what I think all the fans are talking about today. How do you handicap Hanner and Rattler at QB2?
Oh, it's so interesting because you talk to Derek Carr, you talk to Dennis Allen, you talk to Coach Kubiak, and they like both these guys. Both have that starter caliber performance that they've seen that probably most of us haven't in practice. They rave about the way they've approached the game off the field. So in the classroom, in the meeting rooms, the questions they ask, the development that they've had, Haener specifically from last year to this year, his moxie. I mentioned that Coach Allen described him similar to like Seabiscuit, where he may not look the part. He's not going to fit the mold of like a 6'5", 235 perfect, Adonis of a quarterback, but he's got a moxie to him, and he plays with a chip on his shoulder, and he gets them into winning situations. And for Rattler, he's kind of a little more of a cool customer, and as we all have seen, I mean, he spins a pretty ball, and he can run and kind of escape and extend plays, and then when he needs to, he can get the first down by just his mobility. So they like what they have. It will be, hopefully we don't have to see either one of them, and Derek Carr stays healthy and has a great season. But I personally get the feeling, and from what I've seen, that throughout the season, even if Haener is the week one backup, I think Spencer Rattler is probably the higher ceiling player that probably earns that role at some point this season.
That's a really interesting way to phrase it. Last thing, Jon Stinchcomb is our guest. What do you do at running back, John? So 1 and 2, right? And number 3, I'd be interested to see what they do with the waiver wire. I actually think that that's a position group that we've seen flashes from guys. Cabote had a great game. I'm not sure that's the best fit with the system that he's in. So I think, he certainly helped himself yesterday. I thought he had a great game. But there might be other players that become available that the Saints feel is a better fit for that 3 role. Man, I always say it's never the final 53. It's the first 53 because they release those 53 and then, 1,000 other free agents will be out there. We'll see what roster movement comes after that, but it's always an exciting time. Preseason in the rearview mirror, headed toward the regular season coming up a week from Sunday. He's Jon Stinchcomb, former Saint great, good enough to join us for a couple minutes here. Enjoyed hearing you and Joel on the call, man. It's great to have Joel back in the city as well, and always good to hear your voice. We appreciate a couple minutes, John. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Who dat?
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact, and be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.